So the purpose of this workshop is, yes, to maybe highlight skills, but the bigger purpose is to learn from this process which we have used, and to explore whether other problems which are faced by rural surgeons can be solved using this approach or not. And I think that best can be done by a panel discussion. So that's what we have tried to do, and we have assembled experts from various spheres and in form of a panel discussion to talk about innovation, talk about the need of collaborations in this. So let's introduce the panelist. The first panelist is Dr. Henning Mauthes. He is a chief physician at Sofian and Hüflen Clinic, Weimar, Germany. He's also president of the DTC, which is the German Global Surgery Organization. By expertise, he's a colorectal surgeon and specializes in abdominal surgery. We welcome you, Dr. Henning. We have Dr. Pankaj Jani. I think is doesn't need any introduction. He's a renowned global surgery leader, educator, trainer, and has been working in Kenya and especially in the East Central South African region for surgical capacity building and through education and training. Welcome, Dr. Pankaj. Professor Jenny Denkelman, again, a champion in terms of design and engineering, especially in biomedical equipments. She has an experience of running several projects, especially for low resource settings. We are really privileged to have you here, Prof. Jenny. We have Dr. Salim Afsar. He's a faculty in program in global surgery and social change at Harvard Medical School. He also is very much interested in new innovations, and currently he's also working with W Health Venture. So we welcome you, Dr. Salim Afsar. Also, Dr. Salim was very much interested in gasless. I think initially when we kicked off the first study at MAMC, he was one of the supporter of the study. We welcome you, Salim. We have Professor Agnes Watson from Royal College of Surgeons, Edinburgh, and he is a colorectal surgeon and honorary professor at University of Aberdeen. Also, he's a clinical advisor to Scottish government, and his work at policy level, and he'll be very, very useful in the panel discussion. Welcome, Professor Watson. Brianne Dawkins, we have already introduced. She will bring in the health economic purview of the innovations and the need of it. Again, welcome, Brianne. We have Mr. Sandeep Sani. I think we have heard about Excello. He runs Excello Ortho Life Care, which is a company which specializes in manufacturing and distribution of surgical equipment, especially orthopedic implants. But I think we discussed this idea of gasless devices, and he was very much interested. And the product which he has created is top class, and his I think passion for details and quality stands out. So welcome, Mr. Sandeep, on today. And then we have Mr. Richard Hall. He is again a core team member of the Guilds team. He runs PDM, which is a company based in UK, which is innovative in product design and manufacturing consultancy team. He has been instrumental in development of the RISE device, and I'm sure will bring in a lot of very necessary inputs in the panel. So we welcome you, Mr. Hall. So yes, so we have different skill set people, and to conduct this panel discussion, I think no one could be better than Dr. Navajit Roy. Again, a very renowned global surgery expert, public health expert, has experience of working as a surgeon, as a policymaker, as advocate for the need of surgical services, and as a rural surgeon also. So I'll straight away hand it over to Dr. Roy to take it from here. Dr. Roy, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Anurag. It's been a great session so far. And just to ensure, we have about 40 minutes. And I think the last 5 minutes I should be handing over to Dr. Gyanaraj and you for summing up. So let's target 35 minutes from now. So thanks for that. And over to the panelists, welcome. I did leave my operation theater 4 years ago to move over to the Ministry of Health and get a lateral entry there. And one of the interesting portfolios that I had there was being in charge of the National Healthcare Innovation Portal. Now, when Noel interviewed me in this funny role as a policymaker, I mean, I've been used to speaking like a surgeon, but he said that, how do we scale up innovation? And I thought that is one of the fundamental things that we should try and discuss in this panel. So what happens at the National Healthcare Innovation Portal that I ran, it was probably the best job in the world. I would actually go across the country foraging through innovations in blocks, districts, villages, and then bring them up to the national level, have something called like a hackathon, which would be the national summit on good replicable practices and innovation in public healthcare systems in India. And we would invite other states to come in and actually pitch whether they want those innovations to be replicated in their states. Then I had a pot of money to take the primary originator, the inventor of the innovation, and actually replicate it across multiple states. And it was amazing to see how innovations would bloom, blossom, or probably die out. And some innovations actually had a cycle of 14 months, and it would just spread like wildfire across the country, and there would be a huge buy-in. One of the important things that I would like to say is there is too much focus, especially when I see it at the national level, on product innovation. Now, product innovation is, of course, fun. It's always fun. It includes devices, technologies, a lot of cool new stuff. But what is also important as innovation, and the innovations which get scaled up best are the program innovations. And when you see what is the program innovation, it is looking at a system and seeing how your innovation fits into the system. So it's actually, you understand the system and you put in an innovation to make that work, as opposed to, I have a solution, I'm going to try and plug it in. Moving on to the last part. What is the criteria used? And the criteria that we used for selecting innovations, scaling them up, funding them as a part of the committee was, how relevant is it to the existing healthcare needs? Does it address locally endemic health problems or diseases? Does it facilitate better healthcare to reach to the people? That is accessibility in terms of geographies and population, affordability, and of course, equity is the most important thing that we look for without compromising on the quality. Does it bridge a crucial specialized skill gap required in delivery of health services, demonstrate effective health outcomes, and evidence of scalability to large-scale health systems, the last one being very important. And as you can see in this group, you have pretty much ticked off and checked all the boxes. So well done on that. So the way to scale up is to plug into the national systems in LMICs, because we have all too often seen that a very good innovation gets killed in the market when you start to commercialize it. So the LMIC government actually have schemes to protect these low-cost innovations. So I just wanted to point that out. And with that, I would be happy to move to the panel. And this is how the panel looks. I would say that we are going to have a bunch of questions which we're going to run through in the next 30 minutes. And we have chosen a few panelists. If you think that you're not comfortable discussing it, you can choose to pass it. But for now, we will start off with this list, which you can see on your screen. So for the first round, I call upon Professor Pankaj Jani, Professor Jenny, and Dr. Henning to discuss the all-important question: do you see the need of innovation and collaboration in solving key problems in LMIC? Now, I know it's almost a rhetoric question, but we thought it would be a good way to start the discussion. So over to you, Professor Pankaj Jani.
Thank you, Nobo. Thank you. And really interesting discussions. I am really grateful to be here. It's an honor. I think there is no doubt that innovation and collaboration is of the utmost importance. And just to give you an example, my life has been spent with COSEXA. This is the College of Surgeons, East Central and Southern Africa. And at the present moment, we are training about 840 surgeons in 19 countries in Africa. And this is a disruptive, innovative model of training surgeons in rural areas. The focus here is basically to train a surgeon for an area where surgeons were not available. So that gives you a concept that innovation and collaboration, and this has been achieved through collaboration in 20 countries at the present moment. So innovation and collaboration is of the utmost importance in low and middle income countries. And I've just given you an example of training surgeons. And we have now reached a level where the initial trainees have become the trainers, just like Elijah Maura is a trainer at the present moment, having trained in the COSEXA program. And this snowballing effect is going to sort out the need for surgery in rural areas, all right? The second thing is we need to move to the next level, and not only the human personnel, but training in various things. We know laparoscopic surgery is an established thing. Just to give you a quick one, in the early 90s, I think it was 90 or 91, I was at the BSG in Kensington in London. And my chief and I walked into the thing, and there were chopsticks with the dummies outside. And he said, "This is a non-starter." And I was a bit perplexed, and I took on laparoscopic surgery, and we introduced laparoscopic surgery in Kenya over the years. And we all know laparoscopic surgery is the future of surgery. I don't think there's anybody in this panel who, God forbid, has an appendicitis or a cholecystectomy and wants it to come out through the open method. So it is an established form of treatment. We know the benefits of all this. So we need to innovate in these areas. We need to collaborate to move this forward. I'll hand it over to the other panelists now with these few words. Thank you. Well, thank you.
Thank you, Professor Jani. Open to you, Professor Jenny.
Thank you very much. And thank you very much for the invitation to join this workshop. I also would like to compliment the GILS team and all the collaborators around it, because you managed really something that is very challenging. So excellent work. And I think the most important reason why it was successful is the good collaboration that you have with this multidisciplinary team. And that's really necessary. And that is something really important to, if you want to innovate in a field like surgery in low resource settings. So compliments from my side. Yeah, I think it's the need for innovation for low resource setting is increasing. What we see is in the high income countries, for example, there come more complex robotics and automation. That means that we see that the gap between what's used in high countries is increasing, that what fits to the low resource settings. So we have to come up with solutions which is really fits in the low resource settings. And when I worked for already 20 years with surgeons, and then about 5 years ago, I discovered how the impact was of lack of safe surgery in low resource settings. And I thought, well, while making this tiny incision, even from 5 to 3 millimeters, well, a large part of the world cannot have access. So we need to innovate specific for low resource setting. And I think there is still possibilities to come with better devices, better instruments like repairable, reusable devices, affordable, of course, and robust devices that cannot break. But also what we have to think about is with these devices, can we come up also with better ways to train, for example, biomedical equipment technicians to maintain and repair the devices. And there also we need innovation. We need innovation how to train those people and get more support in the hospitals to help the surgeons. And we see a lot of surgeons doing the best, but I always ask them, yeah, where are the engineers to support these surgeons? Where are they? And if you look at worldwide, there's only a few groups working on trying to make the devices affordable for low resource settings. So we should scale up there as well. So I think scaling up is necessary for a lot of aspects, but especially from coming with new ideas, new innovation. Is innovation not only in devices, but also the system around it. And training is one aspect on that, but also maintaining and cleaning, for example, coming with more better cleaning methods and sterilization methods. So there are a lot of things to do. So, and with that, I would like to end my contribution for this part. I think we as also as engineers, closely together with a multidisciplinary team, should come up with much better solution than S6 now for make surgery available for everyone, and especially minimally invasive surgery because of the benefits.
Thank you, Professor Jenny. Professor Angus, you've got your hand raised. Please go ahead.
Listen, thank you so much for inviting me to join this forum. I mean, it's fantastic to hear the work. And I guess my point is that this is a living example of how to innovate and to bring an innovation into real life. And I think we have to stop the tail wagging the dog. So the dog has to wag the tail, so that there has to be a meaty problem for the innovation to solve, rather than a new gadget or gizmo coming onto the market looking for an application. And I think the gasless laparoscopy project is a really good example of defining a need and then creating a solution to that need. So wholeheartedly behind it. I think we have to guard against silos, and the problems with innovations and them not breaking through is because everyone works in silos. So bringing a collaboration of multi-professionals and international multi-professionals across the spectrum into this forum is a way of breaking the silos. I think engaging industry. So we will not get anywhere unless we have the healthcare industry and industry working together. And so having engineers and having manufacturers and that can also innovate, working together in open innovation, working together so they both iterate, is really important. And then the last point is policy. Absolutely. Unless this is policy, unless this gets into government policy, college policy, education policy, medical school and training program policy, we'll not get anywhere. So we have to get the policy bit right to create the pull for innovation. And I guess gasless laparoscopy is a prime example where if we can get it into policy, then the pull to get products and to get training around those products will be there. So those are my points, and I guess that takes into some of the next question that we're going to ask. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Watson. I perhaps Dr. Henning is still having problems. Okay, in that case, I will move on and I will call on Dr. Salim Afshar to discuss what are the current barriers in innovation and collaboration, and then work myself backwards through Professor Watson and Professor Jani. Over to you, sir.
Thank you for inviting me to join this really wonderful session. As previously mentioned, this is, I think, the gases project here is a living example of collaboration and innovation. But there are still barriers, right, that exist. And a lot of them are mental barriers, framework. The biggest barrier is, how do we do this at scale, right? How do we get adoption at scale? And, you know, I have an engineering background and I like to work on devices, as Roy, you mentioned, right? But the programs are fundamental. The program innovations are fundamental to solve the gaps that we have, right? We can often focus on design improvements and create a small, number of people using it to write some papers. But how do we do this at scale? And the barriers I see are not really starting with the end in the beginning. So thinking with scale first, thinking about the funding, the finances, how do we get the market educated about this, right? The dissemination and adoption of it. And the reason this is a challenge is mainly around financing. Initially these projects are funded usually through public institutions, grants, and they have their own limitations. They're designed with a certain timetable. There's no recognition of being efficient financially, right? You have to spend the money per year. And the financing is a big barrier that has to be solved, because to traditional investors, traditional, to make this a commercial product, the ticket size has to be large enough. The risks have to be reduced enough for them to be interested. And I think that's a large area of that is still unknown in kind of bringing frugal innovations about. And I think in the beginning you mentioned diverse skills, unified vision. We need more people from industry early on to help answer the right questions, right? Like, is this design the issue of why it's not being adopted over 20 years? Or is it education of surgeons? Like, what is how do we have to design a program from the beginning so that at the end we have scale?
Thanks for that, Sal. Wise words. Over to you, Professor Pankaj Jani.
Thank you. I think the barriers in innovation and collaboration at the present moment, we need to look at it from the involvement in the low and middle income countries. It has to originate where it has to be adopted. And we need to really look at how to get the cost element. I mean, finances is a huge issue here. And we all know the gap at the present moment. And we need to think of this if we're going to succeed, that it has to originate in the low and middle income countries, preferably also manufactured in the low and middle income countries, looking at the cost of it. And the more the involvement from the area where it's going to be used, the bigger the uptake. this is my point I wish to make. Thank you, Noble.
Thank you, Professor Jani. Any follow-up comments, Professor Angus Watson?
No, I agree. I agree completely. I think having that end user, use the innovation phrase, having that end user involvement from the very beginning is absolutely key. There's no point designing a shiny instrument that does not fit the bill and cannot be used at scale. So I absolutely agree with Professor Jani. So having that end-to-end ecosystem where the people who are going to use it in anger and at scale are involved at the very beginning about the design and deployment of it. Really, I think is a really important.
So since Dr. Henning is again unable to speak, I'd like to move on to the next big area, which is the various areas where collaboration is needed. And for that, I would like to call upon Bryony Dawkins. Over to you, Bryony.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, really agree with all the discussion so far, particularly around the process and focusing initially on identifying a relevant need that needs to be met with any innovation. And that sort of, I think, is crucial to answer this question as well. So there's lots of different levels that I see where collaboration is needed, and that they start right at the beginning of the process and they go all the way through. So we can think about identifying that relevant need, and we need collaboration to understand whose need it is and how it would work in the context. And really, that's something that you need a lot of collaboration from to understand all the different perspectives that you need to consider. And that collaboration then needs to continue so that we can collaborate with the right people to get buy-in with any innovation. So that's from different stakeholders, end users, providers, policymakers, and often that buy-in has to start early on as well, through building relationships and through collaboration. And then that collaboration also needs to continue through the process in terms of providing evidence, which is what we all need to convince policymakers, decision makers, providers, but also end users. So it's fine having an innovation even if you manage to get it into a system, scale up, but if it's not acceptable for an end user, then it still won't succeed. So it needs collaboration at lots of different levels, but all the way through the process. That's all I think.
Thanks very much, Bryony. It's really heartening to have a health economist in this group. And in low and middle income countries, we just cannot afford people like you. So it's really nice to have economists. Health economics, of course, is not always the most attractive thing for economists. So thank you for that. Tamara, unfortunately, was not able to join us. So I will move this question to Professor Jenny. Over to you, Professor Jenny.
Thank you. Yeah, I think the previous speaker already indicated already that when you want to collaborate, and that collaboration is necessary for the whole trajectory what you have to go through with you for a new, for example, new device, from the innovation until trying out, improving it, testing it, certificating it, manufacture it. In all these fields, you have to collaborate together. And if you want to manage to get it in the end into the clinical practice, I think it's from the beginning you already have to do this whole team on board, and that's challenging because it's a long. It's the time needed for developing an instrument. It can take years. So how can those people on board from the beginning to get the feedback input that you need in the beginning already to make the right device? And while this is so important, it's also very difficult. But I think what I've seen here, and that if you have gone through this trajectory of a number of times, you learn from it. And we need collaboration to exchange our experience, to do's and the don'ts, to learn to speed up, because speeding up, I think, is a key here. And collaboration, it's really necessary from the beginning to be able to speed up the whole process. And one of the things, and this number of times is mentioned already, is funding. But also to obtain funding, you need a multidisciplinary team. You need to show that you have everybody on board. And that's why I think maybe we should learn from each other how to do that. And maybe try to sometimes together, because it's not easy. Because developing a business plan for a low resource setting, we are facing it now a few times, it's not easy. It's different, and we have to learn how to do that in a good way. So collaboration is key, and collaboration between various people with various disciplines. And yeah, we have to step over each other's own discipline into others, and that can only be done if you are willing to spend time in each other's, and also have respect for each other's ways of working. And that takes time, and you have to speed up. So yeah, we are facing a lot of challenges, but on the other hand, if you're doing it, it's just also very rewarding. And that's, I think, in the end, what it's all about.
Professor Jenny, thank you. And clearly your years of experience is showing through here. I couldn't agree with you more. Actually, innovators and inventors are very excited about their products. And when it starts getting commercialized and when it starts getting scaled up, actually, a lot of people can't see how it starts to sort of lower its quality. Sometimes it begins to disintegrate. The original quality is not there, and that really begins to hurt. But that's always a compromise between having this one prototype versus the scaled up version, which is really hard to do. And I see that with a lot of program innovation. When you do a program innovation for a small group of 200 people in a small village in Malawi, it's very much under your control. And then once it gets scaled up to 30 million people, the program just seems to struggle, starts to come apart, and that really hurts the person who's invented it. But that's the part of the scale-up process. So thank you for that, Professor Jenny. With that, I'd call upon the design and specialists and the engineers for the next important thing, the role of monitoring and quality assurance, which is always, as I mentioned, a problem as we scale up. And for that, I'd call upon Mr. Sandeep Singh Sani. Over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Roy. It's my proud privilege to be part of this elite group of panelists and all the members present here. I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank the team of RACE. Dr. Noel is there. We have Professor Ganaraj, Dr. Anurag, Professor Peter, Richard, to name a few. We have been working all through the COVID, on weekly meetings. When it comes to quality assurance and when it comes to monitoring, we have a dedicated QC team in-house, which is well equipped. We have a regulatory team. Just to share with you the prototypes as we were discussing, the team at UK and team at India, we have been developing for past 2 years, 1, 2, 3, not 4, 5 prototypes. And now is the time when we have the final prototype. Just to maintain the quality, we are very stringent. We are a company, we are an organization which is multinational. We are already producing high quality orthopedic implants. We are providing to all over the world. When it came to designing the RACE device, so apart from the metallurgy, sourcing, the work on the CNC machines, with the help of team UK, which is Mr. Richard, along with Professor Pete, we have our own R&D team. So we have together worked to produce the perfect example. Not only the device has been taken care of, even the basic needs of transportation, how to autoclave it, how to market, how to assemble it in the rural settings. So everything has been taken care of. Even the minutest things, once the assembly is dismantled, how to again rearrange it, while the gap between the two autoclaves, it should not get scratched. So all those minor details have been taken care of. And we from the industry side, we are working very hard so that even the minutest part, in case it needs any repair or it needs replacement, it will be done locally only. We are not making a device which will once have developed some minor issues, cannot be repaired. So the team along with Professor Peter, along with our R&D team, have developed such a system so that it has got a very long life. We have tested a lot of endurance levels. We have tested the quality of the material. So everything is in place. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sandeep. And thank you, Mr. Sandeep. Biomedical equipment maintenance is probably one of the biggest issues for surgeons, and we've all suffered in a very big way for that. So thank you for touching on that. We also have a national program for biomedical equipment maintenance, because it's very easy to buy. Everybody's excited about buying instruments, and then it just languishes there. So thanks for covering that. And I'd now like to call upon Mr. Richard Hall. Over to you.
Thank you. Thanks for the invitation to be on the panel as well. I'm very humbled. I think the first thing that I'd like to mention is that although my name has been referenced, I've got to give a lot of credit to Pippa Bridges, that's also on this call. Pippa's been instrumental in terms of the design and development of RAISE and the collaboration process. In short, my kind of answer in terms of the role of quality assurance, I think a lot of people assume that quality assurance is really talking about the product, but I think it's a lot deeper than that. So, for example, quality of design. I think if we get the right quality of design inputs, then we've got a good chance of getting a good quality of design output. The other one is the quality of the process. So, as has been alluded to, innovating can be very difficult sometimes, but I think part of this is that if you've got the right process, then that's going to make the journey a lot easier and experience. I think the other aspect is quality of manufacture of prototypes. So it's really important, as with this particular project, engaging with XLO to manufacture prototypes that are indicative of production, and that way we can validate the quality of the medical device throughout. I think the other aspect of this is quality of consistency. So with XLO, the manufacturing partners, it's important that the manufacturer of the first device, the quality of that is the same as the quality of the 500th or hopefully the 10,000th prototype production part that's made. And I think the other aspect is post-market surveillance. So whilst this product has been designed and created and the first trial in human, it doesn't necessarily mean that we need to stop with that development and innovation process. So I think in terms of quality, we have to constantly look at the outputs with post-market surveillance and feed that back into the input and constantly iterate to make a better and better product. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. And over to Professor Jenny.
Thank you. I only have a small thing to add. I think indeed it's already mentioned that it's really key that you have people trained, biomedical equipment technicians trained to maintain and repair the equipment. What I would like to tell is that we are working on a MOOC. It is a massive online open course for everyone in the world. It's open access that you can learn to repair and maintain medical devices. So if you are interested in this course to know more about it, please let me know. It will be launched in January, the end of January.
Thank you, Professor Jenny. With that, we unfortunately have just 1 minute to go before I hand over. So I will jump to the last question, which is probably the most important question, and request Professor Watson to take it. How can we collaborate for funding?
So thank you. Big question. So I think forming the collaboration is the first step, and the team have done that. I want to just commit the Royal College of Surgeons of Edinburgh's resources to this project. We are an international charity with 30,000 surgeons, members and fellows across 100 countries. And I guess we're a bit of glue that might cement the Indian Association of Surgeons and CIRS and other colleagues to help that collaboration. We have a global surgery foundation and a faculty of remote rule and humanitarian healthcare, which I have just invited you all to become members of. So I think having the college support this process and creating a drive to policy will help. It certainly helped in attracting funding for other innovations. So this is this is a skills box that I sent off to Professor Jani and his colleagues in CIRS, which is aimed at basic surgical skills, funded by Innovate UK, one of the innovation vehicles in the UK. So I think forming the collaboration, getting institutional funding from NIHR, and looking bigger at international funders, Gates Foundation, etc., etc. I think this collaboration could do that. And I just want to commit the Royal College support and heft and might behind it. So and try and get this at scale.
Thank you, Professor Watson. And for the last few seconds, I'm going to call upon the other rich guy in this, who's coming from one of the richest universities, Harvard. So over to you, Sal. You're Mr. Moneybag.
Well, regarding funding, I think this is really exciting. There's an evolution that occurs with public funding, academics, and as we start to now think scale, I think there, as a collaboration, we have to answer certain questions regarding, what is the cost of getting, even if the device is free, what is the effort involved? What's the cost involved to get surgeons exposed to this? Then how of those who get trained, and of those who go practice, and then what is the impact in patient lives? And then break that down to, a dollar amount. Then you can go to these different foundations, from DFIs to other organizations, that here's where a dollar reaches. And I think closing that loop of the program cost and effort, and then to the impact it has in access of care, is one we are able to do, and will then translate in people understanding why we should get funding. So the collaboration, I think we're at a really exciting point to be able to go to the next level to actually get, the right type of funding to do this at scale now.
Thank you, Sal. I think we have the perfect scale mix here to make this happen. And thanks for leading the way on that, Sal. And with a couple of minutes to the hour, I'd hand over to Anurag and Yaniraj to begin to close the session. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, the panelists, for being with us. And we're going to take this conversation forward. It's been a very short and compact time, but we're going to take this conversation forward offline. Over to you, Anurag.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Roy. And thank you all the panelists. I think this was very interesting and very inspiring, very encouraging. And I think we need to take this energy, we need to keep this energy alive and maybe talk offline. I will invite Dr. Ganraj here to just give the closing remark and close the session.
Can I share the slides, please? I think you have to unshare.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, are you able to see my slides?
Yes.
Yes, you can go full screen.
Yeah. I think one way of assessing how interesting the program was to look at the number of questions posed in the chat. And I stopped counting after 100 because it's been quite an interesting program. I think everyone agrees that we need to have the patients return to work, and minimally invasive surgery is very important. And it increases the quick turnover of patients in rural areas, and you can optimally use visiting surgeons. And I'm sure everybody would now agree that gasless surgery is very relevant for rural areas. And there are several studies which show that it's comparable, safe, and even has better physiological parameters compared to conventional laparoscopy surgery. And very interesting fact is that several scientific studies have been already carried out and published. And now we need to come to some sort of consensus to decide on how to proceed further. So one of the things which came out of the panel discussion is that we definitely need international cooperation and definitely involve engineers and break the silos that is already there. And the interesting thing I noted in the PowerPoint that Dr. Roy presented was that even though there was 175 submissions, there were no analysis programs implemented from any of them. So I think we need to further work with the various governments and their funding so that at least this we can take it forward. And the scientific research is specifically need to be directed to the low research setting and not the other way, which you design some excellent equipment and push it on others. And of course, everyone understands that finance is a primary barrier. And the good thing is that we already have a multidisciplinary team, which is there to work on it. And the first person to commit is Dr. Watson, saying that Royal College Edinburgh will commit and support. So what we do is, I think we should work on a consensus statement, because a lot of times we hear various programs, listen to excellent lectures, and within 2 days forget 90% of what we heard. If you write it down and work further, I think we can go a long way. And I think Maulana Azad Medical College is planning a bigger hybrid session, both in-person and online event in April next year. And before that, if you could really start working on a consensus statement and take forward, that will be a wonderful thing. Thank you once again for attending and participating. And we really hope that this will benefit the rural surgeons all over the place. Thank you. I think if, yeah, Dr. Watson, go ahead, thanks.
Thank you for arranging this workshop. A point which I think I wanted to add to this discussion was when everyone was talking about the device being circulated and monitored, any low-cost device. So I think there is a very strong area of research which must be explored is machine learning and artificial intelligence, which can be incorporated in low-cost medical devices. So, which are very helpful for reducing the effort of monitoring any device can be used in low and middle income settings. So that's the point which I wanted to make. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I think
So
one thing which I learned from Western people is to keep to time. You're already 3 minutes beyond time.
yes, I think
Thank you once again for attending, and welcome, and see you in Delhi if possible in April next year. Thank you.
thank you everyone, and see you all in MAMSI. On behalf of MAMSI, I'm inviting you all for that conference in April 2022. The exact date and details will be shared very shortly. Thank you everyone.